Hello. Welcome to this Lifetime's edition of Osher Talks About Books He Reads. So, I haven't really done this before, but it's cool to see other people do it. I hope you can hear me from all the way up there. You're balanced pretty precariously. But the dealio is that this past month, I've been reading some books, and I don't have the first one with me, but it's really been interesting to read. It always is, but that doesn't really detract from the fact that it was really interesting to read this past month. I don't know why. It's convenient to talk about months. But I've been traveling a lot. I've been seeing family. I've been having all sorts of mini adventures. And throughout it all, people keep asking me how I'm managing my time, if I can fit everything in, and I'm not really stressed about planning the optimal trip, about how much time I have left, and all that. I've also been seeing a lot of people making and creating, and I think that's really cool, hence I'm doing this, I guess. But for now, I've mostly just been listening to these books. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things to do. Maybe my favorite thing to do. Because you can really listen to another life when you read one of these. And that's not something so easy to do. I'm living my own life. Maybe I could do that better. I gotta project more, but there's people on the streets who can hear me. So, I'm a little nervous. For the first book I was reading back in the United States, I got it as a present from my dad for my birthday. I don't have it with me. It's called If I Live to Be 100. It's a book about centenarians and this radio host, I think, who, as a project for the turn of the millennium in the century, the year 2000, interviewed a bunch of centenarians to get an idea of what the 1900s were like. That plan sort of failed pretty quickly. And the book turned out to be much more about what it's like to talk to people who are 100 years old, what it's like, what their lives look like, the differences, different lifestyles, and the personal listening journey of the author as she learns to listen more. So of course there was a lot that was interesting in learning about, seeing how people in different positions lived different life. Like people who lived rurally, people in stable families, people of different races or sexual orientations and all that. It was so nice to just, other than that, the best thing about the book was listening to these people tell their stories. Because they really do have a lot of stories. It's really remarkable to have lived so long. And even more remarkable that they keep living. A lot of them are really active and very inspiring and have incredible communities that they've gathered around them. A lot of them have started new lives at 70, 80, 90, 100. One of them got married at, I think, 96 or 98. And another one got married even later, at like 102 or something. And they live very dangerous lives, but they do keep living them. The words aren't really flowing. I give it a strong 3 stars. A lot of people ask me about that book. You know, what are the big takeaways? What are the secrets? And there aren't really many of those. There are certainly some takeaways, like living every day as its own day, and the power of family and routine. But the most inspiring thing about it was just listening to people, because these people are incredible, and they're not incredible because something is different about them. They're incredible in the way that everybody is, and listening to them is inspiring because they are regular people and normal life. Everybody's life is really interesting to hear about. So yeah, then we moved on pretty thematically to 100 Years of Solitude, where we do get some centenarians. But this is just a story that goes on for like 140 years or something. Maybe a long time. And this book is fantastic. 5 stars. Nobel Prize winner, of course. It's translated, which you can tell. But this book is amazing. This book, 100 Years of Solitude, is amazing because you can see a story unfold over that many years. And life is so large, even when you're pretty isolated, that these humongous life stories that these centenarians have are uncapturable in something like an interview or a snapshot. But when you go and really see the various events and people and expeditions and professions and technological changes and cultural attitudes that have been changing for so many years, and how they've been piling on to this family's massive story, that is really beautiful, and that has certainly changed my outlook on life. Because I've been living life with no imagination of the future, imagining that the present will stay forever. And I mean, it never does. I'm getting more used to it not doing that. But it's really cool to see time laid out like this. And I absolutely love it. And that's not even why it deserves the 5 stars and the Nobel Prize. The reason why it deserves that is because the writing is so unique and real. I've never read something like this. The writing style has very long sentences. It's basically a listing of facts and events on and on for 400 pages. And it gets life. There's all sorts of events here. This was published in 1967 or something. There's also, or maybe translated to English, there's all sorts of events here that I recognize in life that are, and lots that I don't, but I recognize their realness. And it's told in the way that life goes, and the way you notice things. And there's a few moments where characters sort of have an awakening, where they get a better understanding of themselves and society, and their society. A lot of them have particular quirks and are stuck in their ways, but when they exit those ways, I won't spoil that, the way they understand everything that's laid before them and it's late before us, and it's hard for us to understand. It was really touching. That's 5 stars. I'm not gonna talk about it too much. Send me the absence of Lindsay. This was recommended to me a lot by the internet. It's supposed to be a big warm hug. I found out this book was a contemporary book in 2020, and I think that's the downfall for it for me. I think it's a fantastic story, idea. It would probably make a nice movie, but I really did not like reading this. It would be 1 or 2 stars for me. I'm not sure. The writing, it felt like the opposite of this book. It was not real at all. Here we have a man who works for the government going to check on an orphanage of magical children, which are isolated away from the world. And it's about him laying down his government shell and empty life in favor of a colorful life with these magical people in it. And that's such a fantastic idea. But it's so high-horsed about everything, and the author is so set on this idea that from the beginning you can see it already fleshed out, and it keeps predicting everything that's going to happen for you. Any sort of analysis is often done in the third person narration. And it's really, it feels really unreal, and it also tries to preach a lot. It has a lot of morals that it tries to get out. It's very didactic. I told my brother it's almost monodactic because it's more trying to get morals out than telling it, the story itself. Because people in dialogue will just spout these morals, which is not necessarily bad, but I feel like, I mean, I probably don't like it because it came from this book, which was incredible. I had none of that. But here, I don't like it because if it was about these morals, it would have been great to show these morals in action. But instead, they just sort of say the morals. It's a lot about prejudice, and instead of, and it has values of compassion and nonviolence, but it doesn't actually show compassion and nonviolence. It just sort of tries to redraw the lines between an in-group and an out-group, and is almost toxically positive. There's a lot that doesn't consistent, that doesn't really make sense about the story. Where this person is supposed to evaluate whether this orphanage is treating its children well or not, and it obviously is. There's no interpersonal problems except for the one where the world is bigoted and mean to the main character, and the main character is in his own shell, doesn't think he should live life to its fullest by taking these risks. And then there's the people who live in color. And we don't really see people, we see hints of people losing their prejudice, but it's more like people are prejudiced or aren't. And the main character begins already as a kind and unassuming person mostly. I just wish this book would reach out more compassion. It would show, not just praise every action and always be happy, Because if it's trying to teach us something like that, it should come from a real setting, or a real. It's trying to get us to fall in love with this way of life, but it's not a way of life because it's not real. We don't really see how people solve interpersonal problems. We don't really see how we bring about change. We mostly just see an opening of someone who is closed, but not a change in compassion. And so I think this was a swing and a miss. It's a really great setup. Didn't do it for me. And now I'm reading another one of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a Colombian author. I'm reading it translated in Hebrew this time instead of translated in English. And we'll see how that goes. This is very weird.